This moment is not casual, and it is not meant to blend quietly into the background of your day. It is not something you overheard while passing by, and it is not content designed to entertain or inspire briefly before you move on. This moment arrives with intention, carrying weight, timing, and consequence. You did not stumble into it, it found you. It interrupts because it must. It speaks because silence would cost too much. What is happening right now is a deliberate interruption meant to pull you out of momentum, habit, and automatic motion before you step into something unprepared. There are times when life moves so quickly that awareness begins to lag behind action. Decisions are made on instinct. Opportunities are taken because they are available. Doors are walked through because they are open. Movement feels productive, even righteous, simply because it is movement. But not every step forward is progress, and not every open door is protection. This interruption exists because something ahead requires discernment, not speed. It requires awareness, not impulse. It requires presence, not momentum. This moment is not an attack on your progress. It is not a rebuke of your effort. It is not a judgment of your desire to move forward. It is an act of care. It is the kind of interruption that happens when the stakes are high, when timing is delicate, and when a single misstep could alter a future that has been carefully prepared. When something valuable is at risk, warnings get louder, not softer. Silence would be negligence. Interruption is mercy. You may feel the urge to keep going, to push through, to tell yourself you will reflect later. That urge is exactly why this moment matters. Autopilot is comfortable, but it is dangerous when you are approaching a threshold. Momentum can carry you past warning signs without ever registering them. This interruption is meant to break that trance. It is meant to slow your internal pace long enough for clarity to catch up with motion. There is a reason this moment does not feel optional. It does not politely suggest. It does not whisper from a distance. It presses in. It demands attention. Attention is not demanded because you are failing, but because you are nearing something significant. When the margin for error narrows, guidance intensifies. When consequences increase, clarity must increase with them. This interruption is calibrated to the weight of what is ahead. Many people lose what they prayed for, not because they were unworthy, but because they were unaware. They moved too quickly. They trusted momentum over discernment. They interpreted ease as approval and speed as confirmation. This moment exists to prevent that kind of loss. It is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to awaken you. Awareness is the goal. Awareness is the protection. You may notice a sense of urgency in this interruption, but it is not panic-driven. It is proximity-driven. Something is close. Close enough that misalignment would matter. Close enough that preparation cannot be postponed. Close enough that awareness cannot be delayed. When something is distant, subtle guidance is enough. When something is near, clarity must be unmistakable. This interruption also challenges how you relate to noise. In a world saturated with information, alerts, and constant stimulation, it becomes easy to treat everything as background sound. Important signals get filtered out along with trivial ones. This moment refuses to be filtered. It insists on being distinguished from the noise. It calls you out of distraction and into focus, not because everything else is wrong, but because this moment is specific. There is also a tenderness beneath the firmness of this interruption. It does not arrive to shame you or accuse you. It arrives because you matter too much to be allowed to rush blindly. It arrives because what is ahead is too important to be mishandled. It arrives because prevention is kinder than repair. It is easier to pause now than to rebuild later. You might feel resistance rising as you hear this. That resistance is not proof that something is wrong. It is proof that something is being challenged. Old patterns do not relinquish control easily. Habit resists interruption. Momentum resists stillness. But resistance does not invalidate the warning. Often, it confirms its necessity. This moment also removes neutrality. Once awareness is offered, ignoring it becomes a choice. Continuing without attention is no longer accidental. The interruption creates responsibility, not pressure, but stewardship. You are being invited to handle what comes next with intention rather than impulse, to see rather than rush, to listen rather than assume. There is a difference between moving forward and being carried forward. When momentum leads, clarity follows too late. When awareness leads, movement becomes precise. This interruption is about restoring leadership to your inner world. It pulls you back into your body, your breath, your attention. It brings you into the present moment where discernment lives. This is not a message meant to be consumed passively. Passive listening defeats its purpose. It is meant to arrest you internally, to cause you to stop scrolling, stop rushing, stop assuming, stop narrating your life from habit rather than awareness. It is meant to create a pause that allows something deeper to surface. There are moments when guidance arrives gently, and moments when it arrives firmly. Both come from the same source. Firmness does not mean anger. Urgency does not mean threat. Sometimes urgency is simply the sound of care raised to match the stakes. When something fragile is about to be placed in your hands, instruction becomes precise. This interruption also exposes the danger of familiarity. When you are used to moving, you stop questioning direction. When you are used to progress, you stop evaluating cost. Familiarity dulls perception. This moment sharpens it. It forces you to look again, listen again, and consider what you may have normalized without discernment. It is important to understand that this interruption is not about stopping forever. It is about stopping long enough to see, long enough to align, long enough to recognize what is being asked of you internally before anything is asked of you externally. It is about ensuring that when movement resumes, it is clean, intentional, and sustainable. This moment also reframes silence. Silence here is not absence. It is space. Space where clarity forms. Space where noise settles. Space where insight rises without being drowned out. The interruption creates that space. Without it, clarity would be lost in motion. You may be tempted to measure the value of this moment by how it feels emotionally. That would be a mistake. Its value is not in comfort, but in accuracy. It may feel unsettling precisely because it interrupts something familiar. But familiarity is not the same as alignment. Comfort is not the same as safety. This interruption arrives before damage, not after. That is, its mercy. It arrives before regret, before loss, before exhaustion. It arrives while correction is still gentle rather than costly. That timing is intentional. It is easier to pause now than to recover later. You are not being asked to fear what is ahead. You are being asked to respect it. Respect requires attention. Respect requires readiness. Respect requires awareness. This moment is about honoring what is coming by not rushing toward it blindly. There is also an invitation embedded in this interruption. An invitation to move from reaction to response, from speed to clarity, from noise to discernment. It invites you to step into a more mature posture, one capable of handling weight without being crushed by it. This moment draws a line between background noise and living instruction. Background noise can be ignored without consequence. This cannot. It demands engagement because disengagement would cost too much. It asks for your full attention because partial awareness is insufficient at this stage. The interruption is not dramatic for the sake of drama. It is precise. It is measured. It is timed. It arrives exactly when it needs to. Not too early, not too late. It meets you at the point where choice still exists and outcome is not yet fixed. You are being asked to notice, to feel the weight of the pause, to recognize that something important is happening beneath the surface of ordinary motion. This moment is not meant to pass unnoticed. It is meant to mark a shift from unconscious movement to intentional alignment. There are moments that shape futures quietly, not through spectacle, but through attention. This is one of those moments. What you do with this interruption matters, not because it is dramatic, but because it is directional. It points you toward awareness before action, discernment before decision, and alignment before movement. This moment is not background noise. It is a call to awareness, a pause before motion, a breath before responsibility, a warning wrapped in care, arriving exactly when it must. Stillness here is not weakness, hesitation, or retreat. It is not confusion disguised as spirituality, and it is not fear pretending to be wisdom. Stillness is precision. It is the posture that allows alignment to occur before movement resumes. When everything around you is accelerating, stillness becomes an act of authority. It says you will not be rushed into misalignment simply because momentum is available. It declares that speed does not impress you more than accuracy, and urgency does not outweigh discernment. There is a quiet deception that convinces people that delay means denial, that pause means failure, that stopping means falling behind. That deception feeds anxiety and creates pressure to move before clarity has formed. Stillness confronts that lie directly. It reveals that many of the greatest losses do not happen because people waited too long, but because they moved too soon. They stepped forward with unresolved patterns, unexamined motives, and unsteady foundations. Stillness exists to prevent that kind of collapse. What feels like delay is often restraint. What feels like resistance is often protection. Stillness is the space where internal alignment catches up to external opportunity. Without it, opportunity outruns maturity, and the result is strain, confusion, and self-sabotage. When stillness is honored, growth happens beneath the surface. Strength develops quietly. Awareness sharpens. The inner world reorganizes itself to support what is coming rather than buckling under it. Stillness is not empty time. It is active preparation. It is the moment when reaction is suspended and response becomes possible. When motion stops, truth becomes audible. Patterns become visible. Motives surface. Fear reveals itself. Stillness exposes what movement hides. That exposure is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. You cannot correct what you cannot see, and you cannot see clearly while rushing. There is a reason stillness feels threatening when pressure is high. Pressure convinces you that if you stop, you will lose momentum, miss your window, or be overtaken. Stillness challenges that fear by asking a deeper question. What if what is meant for you cannot be taken by speed? And what if rushing is the only way to lose it? Stillness requires trust, and trust feels risky when outcomes matter. But alignment always costs less than repair. Stillness also recalibrates identity. Many people measure worth by productivity, movement, and visible progress. Pausing disrupts that measurement system. It forces a confrontation with the question of who you are when you are not moving, proving, or producing. That confrontation is uncomfortable, but it is cleansing. It separates identity from performance and worth from activity. Without that separation, success becomes a burden instead of a blessing. There is a difference between being still and being stagnant. Stagnation is the absence of growth. Stillness is growth happening invisibly. Roots deepen while the surface remains quiet. Strength develops where no one is watching. Capacity expands internally so it does not fracture externally. What looks like nothing happening is often everything being prepared. Stillness also restores sensitivity. When you move too quickly, everything becomes loud and indistinct. Signals blur together. Intuition dulls. Discernment weakens. Stillness sharpens perception. It allows subtle warnings to be noticed before they become consequences. It allows guidance to be felt rather than forced. In stillness, the difference between opportunity and distraction becomes clear. There is a reason wisdom traditions consistently value waiting. Waiting trains patience, and patience trains trust. Trust creates stability. Stability allows power to flow without damage. Stillness is not about avoiding responsibility. It is about becoming capable of carrying it. What arrives without preparation often leaves destruction behind. Stillness ensures that what comes can stay. Stillness also interrupts compulsive urgency. Urgency often masquerades as obedience, but it is frequently rooted in fear. Fear of missing out, fear of falling behind, fear of being overlooked. Stillness exposes these fears and weakens their influence. It slows the nervous system. It returns authority to the present moment. It reminds you that clarity cannot be rushed into existence. There are moments when moving forward feels noble, simply because it feels brave. Stillness asks whether bravery is required, or whether restraint is. True courage is not always loud or visible. Sometimes it is the courage to stop, to wait, to listen, and to refuse to be pushed by pressure that has no wisdom attached to it. Stillness also protects from emotional manipulation. When you are constantly moving, reactions become predictable. Praise can inflate. Criticism can destabilize. Pressure can coerce. Stillness creates space between stimulus and response. That space is power. It allows you to choose rather than react, to respond from clarity rather than impulse. There is an important distinction between alignment and acceleration. Acceleration amplifies whatever is already present. If fear is present, it amplifies fear. If insecurity is present, it amplifies insecurity. Alignment corrects what is present before amplification occurs. Stillness is where alignment happens. It is the pause that ensures what grows will grow cleanly. Stillness also honors timing. Timing is not passive. It is precise. Acting too early can damage outcomes just as severely as acting too late. Stillness trains awareness of timing. It develops sensitivity to when movement is required and when restraint is wiser. Without stillness, timing is guessed. With stillness, timing is recognized. There is a misconception that stillness means disengagement from life. It does not. It means engagement with awareness. Responsibilities can still be handled. Life can still move forward. But the inner posture changes. You move with intention rather than compulsion. You choose rather than chase. You listen rather than assume. Stillness also stabilizes the emotional landscape. When everything is in motion, emotions fluctuate wildly. Excitement spikes. Anxiety rises. Doubt creeps in. Stillness levels those fluctuations. It creates emotional sobriety. That sobriety allows decisions to be made from wisdom rather than emotion. Decisions made in sobriety tend to endure. Stillness is often the final preparation before expansion. When growth is imminent, systems must be strengthened. Foundations must be reinforced. Weak points must be addressed. Stillness allows that reinforcement to occur without collapse. It gives space for internal restructuring that movement would disrupt. Stillness also exposes misalignment early. Small discomforts that would be ignored in motion become noticeable in pause. Unease becomes information. Resistance becomes guidance. Confusion becomes a signal to wait rather than push. These signals are gifts. They are easier to heed in stillness than to repair after being ignored. Stillness demands maturity. It requires the ability to tolerate uncertainty without rushing to resolve it. It requires confidence that clarity will come without forcing it. It requires humility to admit that speed is not always strength. This maturity is developed, not assumed. Stillness is one of its training grounds. There is also a spiritual authority that comes from stillness. When you are not driven by urgency, you cannot be easily controlled by pressure. When you are not rushing, you are harder to manipulate. Stillness anchors you internally. That anchor allows you to stand firm even when circumstances try to pull you into reaction. Stillness redefines success. Success becomes alignment rather than achievement, faithfulness rather than visibility, accuracy rather than speed. This redefinition is crucial for sustainability. Without it, success consumes the one who attains it. With it, success becomes a tool rather than a burden. Stillness is where motives are purified. In movement, motives hide behind results. In stillness, results are absent and motives are exposed. Why do you want what you want? Why are you moving toward what you are pursuing? What would remain if progress slowed? These questions are uncomfortable, but they are liberating. They ensure that what you build does not enslave you. Stillness is not the enemy of destiny. It is one of its guardians. It stands at the threshold and asks whether you are ready to handle what you are asking for. It checks posture before permission. It ensures that alignment precedes access. There is a quiet confidence that develops in stillness. It is not loud. It does not demand recognition. It does not rush to prove itself. It moves when it is time and rests when it is not. That confidence is resilient. It does not collapse under pressure because it was not built on urgency. Stillness also invites humility. It acknowledges that not everything must be understood immediately, that some things unfold with time, that wisdom often arrives slowly. This humility protects against arrogance and overreach. It keeps you teachable even when opportunities increase. The pause you are being invited into is not indefinite. It is intentional. It is measured. It has purpose. It exists to align you internally so movement can resume externally without distortion. It exists so that when doors open, you walk through them with clarity rather than confusion. Stillness is not the absence of faith. It is faith refined. It trusts that what is meant will not require panic to secure. It believes that alignment will not cause loss. It rests in the understanding that timing matters as much as desire. When stillness is embraced, movement becomes cleaner. Decisions become simpler. Direction becomes clearer. Energy becomes focused. Life stops feeling like a chase and starts feeling like a path. Stillness is not the end of movement. It is the beginning of right movement. Not every open door is permission, and not every opportunity is alignment. Some doors open because pressure pushed them, not because wisdom authorized them. Some paths become visible because momentum created them, not because they were meant to be walked. It is possible for things to move quickly, smoothly, and successfully on the surface, while quietly pulling you out of alignment beneath it. Ease is not always confirmation. Speed is not always favor. Applause is not always agreement. This truth is uncomfortable because it disrupts a deeply ingrained belief that if something works, it must be right. There is a subtle danger in confusing access with approval. Access simply means something is available. Approval means it is authorized. Many people step into seasons they were not prepared to steward because availability was mistaken for permission. The door opened, so they assumed they were meant to enter. The crowd applauded, so they assumed they were meant to perform. The opportunity arrived quickly, so they assumed it carried blessing. But permission is not proven by access alone. Permission is proven by alignment, peace, clarity, and timing. One of the most deceptive aspects of misalignment is that it rarely announces itself as such. It often arrives dressed as progress. It looks like growth. It feels like momentum. It comes with validation, recognition, and results. That is why discernment matters most when things are going well. When struggle is present, people naturally question. When ease is present, questioning often stops. This is where many lose their footing, not because they rejected wisdom, but because they stopped looking for it. Open doors can be opened by many forces. Ambition opens doors. People-pleasing opens doors. Fear opens doors. Insecurity opens doors. Even talent opens doors. But none of those guarantee that walking through will lead to life, peace, or sustainability. Sometimes doors open to test restraint, not to invite entry. Sometimes they reveal readiness gaps rather than destiny paths. There is also the danger of applause. Applause can drown out discernment. It feels good to be affirmed. It feels reassuring to be wanted. It feels validating to be celebrated. But applause does not know the future. Applause only knows the moment. It responds to what is visible, not what is sustainable. It cheers outcomes without understanding costs. When applause becomes the guide, integrity quietly moves to the background. Pressure is another false indicator of permission. Pressure creates urgency. Urgency demands action. Action feels productive, but pressure does not come from wisdom. It comes from fear of missing out, fear of falling behind, fear of disappointing others, fear of losing relevance. Decisions made under pressure often carry long-term consequences. That pressure will not help you clean up later. Just because something feels urgent does not mean it is aligned. There are moments when doors open simply because you knocked hard enough. Persistence can create access without discernment. Effort can force opportunities that wisdom would delay. This does not make the opportunity evil. It makes it premature. Premature access places weight on structures that are not yet reinforced. The collapse that follows is not punishment. It is physics. Weight applied without preparation produces strain. Not every opportunity that flatters you is for you. Some opportunities appeal to ego rather than calling. They stroke identity rather than assignment. They offer visibility without responsibility, influence without grounding, reach without depth. These opportunities feel intoxicating because they affirm parts of you that crave recognition. Discernment asks whether that affirmation strengthens or weakens your alignment. Ease is especially deceptive. When something comes easily, it feels like confirmation. Resistance is absent. Flow is present. But ease can come from compatibility rather than correctness. Something can align with your skills while misaligning with your purpose. Something can fit your abilities while eroding your integrity. Something can feel natural while quietly pulling you away from who you are becoming. There is also a difference between doors that open outward and doors that open inward. Outward doors lead to expansion, influence, and exposure. Inward doors lead to refinement, growth, and maturity. Many people prefer outward doors because they look like success, but inward doors often precede sustainable expansion. When inward doors are ignored, outward doors become dangerous. Discernment requires the courage to say no to things that look good on the surface. It requires the ability to disappoint expectations without collapsing internally. It requires confidence that turning down an opportunity does not mean you are losing your chance. It means you are protecting your alignment. That confidence cannot be built in motion. It is developed through awareness and stillness. There are stories of people who gained everything they wanted and lost everything they needed. They accepted opportunities without discernment and found themselves trapped by what once excited them. Their lives became defined by maintenance rather than meaning. They were busy but empty, successful but fractured, celebrated but exhausted. This does not happen overnight. It happens through a series of small yeses given without wisdom. Not every door that opens is meant to stay open. Some doors open to reveal what you should not pursue. Some open to show you the cost of entry before you step through. Discernment allows you to look beyond the opening and ask what lies on the other side. Not just immediately, but over time. What will this demand of you? What will it shape you into? What will it require you to compromise? Another danger is assuming that struggle means disobedience and ease means obedience. This assumption reverses wisdom. Many aligned paths require resistance because growth requires tension. Many misaligned paths feel easy because they do not challenge you to change. Discernment recognizes that discomfort is not always a warning. Sometimes it is confirmation that growth is happening. There is also the issue of comparison. When you see others moving quickly, receiving opportunities, and gaining visibility, pressure increases to accept similar doors when they appear. Comparison fuels urgency. Urgency erodes discernment. Discernment requires clarity of assignment, not similarity of outcome. What is right for one person may be destructive for another. The voice that says, "Take it now or lose it forever," is rarely wisdom. Wisdom does not rush. Wisdom does not threaten. Wisdom invites consideration. It allows space. It confirms alignment internally rather than pushing externally. When something truly belongs to you, it does not need panic to secure it. Not every door that opens aligns with who you are becoming. Some doors align with who you used to be. They appeal to old patterns, old wounds, old desires. They feel familiar because they fit outdated versions of you. Discernment recognizes when familiarity is pulling you backward rather than forward. There are also doors that open to test humility, to see whether you will choose integrity over recognition, to see whether you will wait for confirmation or rush for validation. These tests are subtle. They do not look like temptation. They look like success. Passing these tests often requires saying no quietly while others applaud loudly. Opportunity without alignment creates fragmentation. You may gain externally while losing internally. Your schedule fills while your clarity empties. Your reach expands while your grounding weakens. This fragmentation eventually surfaces as burnout, confusion, or regret. Discernment prevents this by ensuring that what you step into matches who you are internally. There is wisdom in asking not just, "Can I do this?" but "Should I?" Not just, "Will this work?" but "Will this last?" Not just, "Does this benefit me?" but "Does it align with my values, my integrity, my timing?" These questions slow decision-making, but they protect destiny. Sometimes the most aligned decision looks like delay. It looks like restraint. It looks like saying no when everyone expects yes. This does not mean opportunities disappear. Aligned opportunities wait. Misaligned ones pressure. Aligned doors remain open without coercion. Misaligned ones rely on urgency to pull you through. Discernment is not suspicion. It is attentiveness. It listens beneath the surface. It pays attention to internal signals, not just external results. It notices unease, fatigue, misalignment, and confusion as information rather than weakness. It honors those signals rather than suppressing them. Not every applause deserves your attention. Not every invitation deserves your energy. Not every door deserves your presence. Choosing carefully does not make you ungrateful. It makes you wise. Gratitude does not require access. It requires alignment. There are seasons when saying no is the most powerful yes you can give to your future. It preserves energy. It protects clarity. It honors timing. It keeps you from being shaped by environments that were never meant to hold you. The ability to walk away from misaligned opportunities is a sign of maturity. It shows that you are no longer driven solely by fear, validation, or urgency. It shows that you trust alignment more than appearance. That trust becomes a stabilizing force in every decision that follows. Discernment also recognizes that some doors open simply because they are allowed to. Not everything that is allowed is beneficial. Permission is not proven by legality or possibility. It is proven by peace, clarity, and alignment. In the end, not every open door is permission, because destiny requires stewardship, not impulse. What you step into shapes you. What you agree to defines you. What you tolerate trains you. Discernment ensures that your yes is given to what builds rather than erodes, to what aligns rather than distracts, to what sustains rather than consumes. What feels like resistance is not always opposition, and what feels like delay is not always denial. Many times, the very things that frustrate you, slow you down, or force you to stop are not working against you, but standing in front of you as protection. Resistance often arrives wearing the mask of inconvenience, yet its purpose is preservation. It interrupts momentum not to punish progress, but to prevent collision. When something ahead carries weight, responsibility, and consequence, protection often shows up as obstruction rather than ease. Delays are deeply misunderstood. They are often interpreted as abandonment, lack of favor, or evidence that something has gone wrong. But delay can be one of the clearest signs that something is being guarded. It buys time where time is needed. It creates space where clarity must develop. It slows movement so that alignment can catch up to desire. Delay keeps you from stepping into situations before you are ready to handle what they demand. There are dangers you cannot see until you are past them, and by then it is too late to avoid their cost. Protection works best when it operates before damage occurs. It does not wait for disaster to teach lessons. It intervenes early, sometimes quietly, sometimes firmly. Resistance shows up because something unseen would harm you if you continued at your current speed. The frustration you feel is not evidence of failure, but of foresight operating beyond your awareness. Many people pray for doors to open without realizing that open doors are not the only form of blessing. Sometimes the blessing is a door that refuses to open. Sometimes the blessing is a plan that falls apart. Sometimes the blessing is a delay that keeps you from binding yourself to something that would drain you, shape you incorrectly, or cost you more than you can afford emotionally, spiritually, or relationally. Protection often looks like disappointment until hindsight reframes it as mercy. Resistance also has a way of revealing motives. When things do not move as quickly as expected, impatience surfaces. When plans are disrupted, attachment becomes visible. Delay exposes whether the desire is rooted in purpose or driven by pressure. This exposure is not meant to shame, but to refine. What cannot survive delay often cannot sustain success. There is a tendency to assume that smooth paths are safe paths, but smoothness can be deceptive. A road without resistance may lead directly into danger without warning. Resistance forces you to slow down, to pay attention, to question direction. It demands engagement rather than autopilot. In doing so, it protects you from walking blindly into situations that would have required repair rather than growth. Unease is another form of protection that is frequently ignored. That subtle sense that something is off, even when everything looks right on paper, is not weakness or fear. It is information. It is an internal signal that alignment is incomplete. Ignoring unease does not make it disappear. It only delays the moment when its consequences surface. Protection often whispers before it shouts. Disruptions to plans can feel like sabotage, especially when effort has already been invested. Time, energy, and emotion create attachment, and attachment resists interruption. But disruption does not erase effort. It redirects it. What you learned, built, and strengthened during the process remains. The interruption simply prevents those investments from being placed into an environment that would misuse or waste them. Closed doors are often more honest than open ones. An open door can invite you without revealing the cost of entry. A closed door makes its position clear. It does not seduce or flatter. It forces acceptance or redirection. Closed doors spare you from long-term entanglements that would have been far more painful to untangle later. Protection also operates through people. Conversations that feel uncomfortable, feedback that challenges assumptions, or relationships that shift unexpectedly can all serve as safeguards. These moments disrupt emotional equilibrium, but they often prevent deeper harm. Not every confrontation is conflict. Some are course corrections delivered through human interaction. There are times when resistance shows up because timing is off. Something may be right in essence but wrong in sequence. Entering too early can distort outcomes. It can expose you to pressures you are not yet equipped to manage. It can place you in environments that shape you prematurely. Delay allows timing to mature so that when movement resumes, it aligns with readiness. Protection is especially active when identity transformation is still underway. When growth is incomplete, exposure can be dangerous. Influence without grounding leads to instability. Visibility without clarity leads to fragmentation. Resistance slows exposure until internal development catches up. This is not punishment for immaturity, but care during formation. Many people look back on moments they once resented and recognize them as turning points that saved them from paths they would not have survived intact. At the time, the resistance felt cruel. In retrospect, it reveals itself as compassionate. Protection rarely announces itself as such. It requires trust to be recognized in the moment. Delays also protect against exhaustion. Constant forward motion without rest erodes discernment. Fatigue clouds judgment. Delay forces pause. Pause restores capacity. Capacity ensures sustainability. Without this cycle, even good pursuits become destructive. Protection intervenes where ambition would otherwise consume. Resistance can also prevent compromise. When doors refuse to open, it removes temptation to lower standards, abandon values, or accept conditions that violate integrity. Compromise often begins with justification. Delay interrupts that process. It gives space for values to reassert themselves before being negotiated away. Sometimes resistance is not about you at all, but about circumstances that must change before alignment can occur. Systems may need to shift. Other people may need to move. Conditions may need to stabilize. Entering before these shifts would place you in environments that cannot support what you carry. Delay allows the environment to prepare, not just the individual. Protection also guards emotional health. Certain opportunities come with relational costs that are not immediately visible. They demand availability, emotional labor, and constant output. Delay gives time to assess whether those demands align with capacity. It prevents burnout disguised as success. There is also protection from identity erosion. When roles change too quickly, identity fractures. You begin performing rather than being. Resistance slows role expansion until identity stabilizes. This ensures that who you are does not become lost in what you do. Unease, hesitation, and internal friction are often dismissed as fear, but fear and discernment are not the same. Fear shrinks and paralyzes. Discernment alerts and clarifies. Discernment does not demand retreat forever. It asks for pause, evaluation, and confirmation. Ignoring it often leads to consequences that fear warned against but could not articulate. Protection also appears as loss of interest. What once excited you suddenly feels heavy or dull. This shift is not apathy, it is guidance. It prevents emotional attachment to paths that would have drained you over time. Loss of interest is often the gentlest form of redirection. There are times when protection looks like things falling apart at the last moment. Contracts dissolve, plans collapse, agreements fail. These moments feel devastating because of proximity. You were close. You were invested. But proximity without alignment is dangerous. The closer you are to stepping into something misaligned, the more forceful protection becomes. Protection does not always make sense emotionally. It rarely feels affirming in the moment. It asks for trust when clarity is incomplete. It requires surrender when control feels safer. Yet protection proves its value over time. What it prevents, often, outweighs what it postpones. Delays also protect humility. Immediate success can inflate ego before character stabilizes. Resistance keeps growth grounded. It ensures that authority is built internally before being exercised externally. Without this grounding, success destabilizes rather than strengthens. There is a temptation to push harder when resistance appears, assuming that persistence will overcome obstacles. Persistence has value, but discernment must guide it. Not every obstacle is meant to be overcome. Some are meant to redirect. Wisdom knows the difference. Protection blocks the path until wisdom is applied. Disruption to plans can feel like wasted time, but time is rarely wasted in preparation. Skills develop, awareness increases, emotional resilience strengthens. Even when outcomes change, preparation carries forward. Protection ensures that what you gain is not lost by misplacement. Resistance also shields from entanglements that would have required painful exits. Entering misaligned environments often creates obligations that are difficult to leave without loss. Delay prevents those entanglements from forming in the first place. Protection is often invisible until hindsight provides perspective. What once felt like rejection reveals itself as rescue. What once felt like delay reveals itself as timing perfected. What once felt like resistance reveals itself as guidance strong enough to interrupt momentum. The challenge is trusting protection when it does not feel protective. That trust grows through awareness and experience. Each moment of resistance becomes an opportunity to ask what is being guarded rather than what is being withheld. When resistance, delay, unease, or interruption appear, the invitation is not to panic or push harder, but to listen. These signals carry information. They point to misalignment, mistiming, or missing preparation. Honoring them prevents regret later. Protection does not eliminate all difficulty. It eliminates unnecessary damage. It does not guarantee comfort. It guarantees preservation. It does not promise speed. It promises safety. It works quietly, often misunderstood, but always intentional. What feels like a setback may be the exact thing keeping you from stepping into something that would have cost you far more than you are being asked to wait. Protection intervenes before pain teaches what wisdom could have taught gently. Resistance is not the enemy. It is often the boundary that keeps you intact long enough to step forward at the right time. Destiny is not secured by momentum alone, and it is not sustained by ambition, talent, or visibility. It is secured by alignment, guarded by integrity, preserved by timing, and revealed under pressure. What ultimately determines whether something lasts is not how quickly it arrives, but how accurately it is handled. Many people reach doors they prayed for, only to discover that arrival is not the same as stewardship. Destiny does not collapse because it was false. It collapses because it was mishandled. This is why alignment matters more than speed, and why character matters more than opportunity. Alignment is the quiet agreement between who you are internally and what you are stepping into externally. When alignment is present, Movement feels grounded even when it is challenging. When alignment is absent, movement feels frantic even when it is successful. Alignment ensures that your values, motives, and decisions are congruent with the weight of what you are carrying. Without alignment, success creates fracture. With alignment, even pressure becomes purposeful. Integrity is the structure that allows destiny to hold weight without bending. Integrity is not perfection. It is consistency. It is the refusal to compromise truth for convenience, clarity for approval, or values for access. Integrity is tested most aggressively when compromise would be rewarded, when cutting corners would accelerate progress, when silence would preserve comfort. Integrity protects destiny by preventing erosion from within. External opposition rarely destroys what internal compromise has already weakened. Timing is not passive waiting. It is discernment in motion. Timing recognizes that the same action can produce different outcomes depending on when it is taken. Acting too early can be just as destructive as acting too late. Timing requires patience, but patience is not inactivity. It is disciplined trust. It is the willingness to wait without anxiety and move without hesitation when the moment is right. Timing protects destiny from premature exposure and delayed obedience alike. Pressure is not an obstacle to destiny. It is a revealer of readiness. Pressure exposes weak foundations, unclear motives, and unresolved fears. It reveals what has been built on image rather than substance. When destiny is approached without preparation, pressure becomes destructive. When destiny is approached with alignment, integrity, and timing, pressure becomes refining. It strengthens what is solid and exposes what must be addressed. Alignment under pressure requires self-awareness. When pressure rises, instincts surface. Old patterns attempt to reclaim control. Fear whispers urgency. Ego demands validation. Alignment allows you to recognize these impulses without being ruled by them. It creates space between stimulus and response. That space is where wisdom operates. Without it, pressure dictates decisions. With it, pressure becomes information rather than command. Integrity under pressure is revealed through small choices, not dramatic stands. It shows up in what you tolerate when no one is watching, in what you justify when outcomes look good, in what you excuse because results are favorable. Integrity asks whether the means match the message and whether the process honors the purpose. Destiny secured through compromise carries hidden costs that surface later as regret, burnout, or collapse. Timing under pressure is tested by impatience. Pressure convinces you that if you do not act now, you will lose your chance. Timing asks whether the chance belongs to you or whether urgency is manufacturing fear. What is aligned does not require panic to be preserved. What is timed correctly does not evaporate under patience. Pressure tests whether you trust alignment more than immediacy. There is a temptation to equate acceleration with faith. But faith is not measured by speed. Faith is measured by obedience. Obedience sometimes requires waiting when moving would feel more impressive. It sometimes requires restraint when action would feel powerful. Destiny secured through obedience is quieter, but it is stable. Destiny pursued through impulse is louder, but fragile. Alignment also determines sustainability. Many people reach heights they cannot maintain because alignment was sacrificed to get there. Their systems collapse under the weight of success. Relationships strain. Health deteriorates. Peace disappears. Alignment ensures that what you build does not consume you. It allows success to serve you rather than enslave you. Integrity safeguards clarity. When integrity is compromised, clarity dims. Decisions become reactive. Justifications multiply. Confusion increases. Integrity keeps perception clean. It allows you to see situations accurately rather than through the lens of self-deception. Destiny requires clear sight. Without integrity, vision blurs and missteps increase. Timing honors process. Process develops resilience, humility, and wisdom. Skipping process may produce faster results, but it weakens foundation. Timing allows process to complete its work. It ensures that when destiny unfolds, you are not learning under fire what could have been learned in preparation. Pressure will always accompany destiny. Pressure tests whether alignment is real or theoretical. It exposes whether integrity is situational or consistent. It reveals whether timing has been respected or forced. Pressure does not create weakness. It reveals it. Destiny secured through alignment stands under pressure. Destiny pursued without it fractures. Choosing alignment over applause requires courage. Applause is immediate. Alignment is internal. Applause fades quickly. Alignment endures. When applause becomes the compass, integrity erodes. When alignment becomes the compass, applause becomes optional. Destiny is not impressed by attention. It is sustained by truth. Choosing integrity over acceleration requires restraint. Acceleration promises faster outcomes. Integrity demands slower decisions. But what integrity delays, it preserves. What acceleration gains quickly, it often loses slowly. Integrity protects you from becoming trapped by what you rushed into. Choosing timing over impulse requires humility. It acknowledges that not everything is meant to happen now, that some things require ripening, that readiness is not assumed simply because desire exists. Humility allows timing to guide action rather than ego. Destiny is rarely lost in one dramatic moment. It is eroded through small compromises, ignored signals, rushed decisions, and misaligned yeses. Alignment catches those moments early. Integrity prevents rationalization. Timing slows the process long enough for wisdom to intervene. There is also a relational cost to misalignment. When destiny is pursued without integrity, relationships become transactional. People become tools rather than companions. Trust erodes. Loneliness increases, even in crowded rooms. Alignment preserves relational health. It allows connection to deepen alongside progress. Pressure often tempts isolation. When stakes rise, people withdraw. They stop listening. They stop seeking counsel. They stop inviting accountability. Alignment resists isolation. It recognizes the value of perspective. Integrity welcomes correction. Timing allows space for counsel to be considered. Destiny secured through alignment does not require constant defense. It is not fragile. It does not depend on image management. It does not crumble under scrutiny. Integrity removes the need to hide. Timing removes the need to rush explanations. Alignment creates stability. There is also an internal peace that accompanies aligned movement. That peace does not mean absence of challenge. It means absence of inner conflict. You are not fighting yourself. Your values and actions agree. That agreement creates resilience. Under pressure, you bend without breaking. Many people fear that choosing alignment will cost them opportunities. In reality, misalignment costs far more. It costs peace, health, clarity, and sustainability. Opportunities aligned with integrity may take longer to arrive, but they do not require you to abandon yourself to keep them. Destiny is not a prize to be seized. It is a responsibility to be stewarded. Stewardship requires wisdom. Wisdom values alignment. Wisdom honors integrity. Wisdom respects timing. Wisdom understands that pressure reveals rather than defines. When alignment is prioritized, decisions simplify, options narrow, noise quiets, direction clarifies. You are no longer pulled by every possibility. You are guided by purpose. Integrity removes confusion. Timing removes panic. Destiny secured through alignment does not arrive as spectacle. It unfolds as coherence. Life begins to make sense. Effort becomes focused. Energy is conserved. What once felt scattered becomes ordered. Pressure will continue to come. Challenges will continue to arise. But when alignment, integrity, and timing are established, pressure refines rather than destroys. It strengthens what is solid and exposes what must be released. The goal is not to avoid pressure, but to be prepared for it. Preparation happens quietly, through choices no one applauds, through pauses no one celebrates, through restraint no one sees. These moments secure the future more than any visible achievement. Destiny that lasts is rarely rushed. It is built deliberately. It is guarded carefully. It is entered thoughtfully. Alignment ensures accuracy. Integrity ensures endurance. Timing ensures sustainability. Pressure ensures refinement. What is built this way may arrive slower, but it stands longer. It weathers storms. It adapts without collapsing. It grows without eroding the foundation beneath it. Destiny secured through alignment is not loud, but it is firm. It does not demand attention, but it commands respect. It does not rush to prove itself, because it is rooted deeply enough to endure whatever comes next.